The Ottoman Bank. The Ottoman Bank project, which started in 1855 as the dream of the two British entrepreneurs named Stephen Lake and Peter Pascali, was launched a year later with the edict of Queen Victoria. Despite the special status, the new bank, which partially responded to the banking wishes of the Reform Edict, aiming to accelerate the reforms of the Sultan Abdülmecid, the ruler of the period to Tanzimat, was increasingly respond to the state's financial needs. As a result of this successful development, the Ottoman Bank, which doubled its capital in 1862, was now on its way to become a candidate for the state bank status that was increasingly needed. The dream of the new general manager, Sir Edward Vincent, was the construction of a new building, which is worth the magnificence of the bank. The new building on Waweda Street was ordered in 1890 to the famous architect of the time, Alexander Valori. The cash register, which was one of the building's biggest features and ordered from the Samuel Chatwood, the most famous cashier manufacturer of the period, was the subject of newspaper news. The building was put in service on May 27, 1892, with a ceremony. The refaction of the building, which has been subjected to structural interventions for various reasons since its completion, was carried out by Mimarlar Design under the management of Han awarded architect Han Tümertekin. Within the scope of architectural studies, Sad Galata was adjusted from its annexes to reveal the unique character of the building, and its spatial setup was adjusted according to the requirements of the multi-layer program. The period is a time when the Ottoman Empire, where the westernization process was felt intensely in almost every area, turned to the west. This effect is manifested in architectural works and even in this area. Ottoman Bank's building is being built during the period when Ottoman architecture moved away from the classical style of Mimar Sinan to the European architectural style. Of course, the land is bought in Karakay in what is known as Banker Street today, and the construction works takes 2 years to complete. The 19th century architectural masterpiece, designed by the French architect Alexander Valori, is thus added to the city skyline of Istanbul. The contribution of the architect Valori, who has signed the design of many structures designed with a European style that continues to exist, was realized on the occasion of Osman Hamdi Bey, whom he knew from Paris. The two of them accomplished many architectural works, and they also taught architecture. Considering the period, classical Ottoman architecture began to replace by another form, in style and attitude. In this regard, we can talk about the effect of the process in the construction of works that can be incorporated in the modern Western architecture, many of which are currently in use today. Valeri's role in this change is undeniable fact. The historical building of Ottoman Bank has been serving as a museum since 2002 after it overturned 100 years old. Historians and architects discussed the transformation project at the museum. Architect Professor is one of the leading contributors to the transformation. Dr. İhsan Bilgin, historian, academic professor Dr. Edem Eldem, and graphic designer Bülent Erkmen were included. The giant vault and archive of the Ottoman Bank are the most remarkable parts of the museum. In the process of transforming the historical building into a museum, special attention has been paid to ensure that the traces of social life and economy that will make the transition from the Ottoman Empire to the Republican period have been completely preserved. In the museum, the first bank books, accounting records, checks, bills of the Ottoman Empire, and photographs of the bank from past to present have been center of attention of the visitors. Those who want to read books or magazines are also considered in the place where many information about the history of banking can be found. The cafe library, which serves for this purpose, offers different alternatives for spending time to those who visit the Ottoman Bank Museum. With its architectural texture, library, exhibition area, book reading sections and cage, the museum, which is an important place in city and cultural life of Istanbul, can still stand upright with a dignified stance in historical Galata. It is perhaps the most interesting feature of South Galata, which has become the most magnificent structure of Galata, with its neoclassical front facade, which symbolizes the position of the bank between east and west, and its back-facing neo-orientalist style. The rectangular windows of the ground floor are handled in triple arrangement. The rectangular windows of the first and the second floors are arranged in a neoclassical style and form a hall. Inside the rectangular windows, bordered by pilasters, Corinthian columns appear along the two floors on the sides. Downstairs, between the columns, there are four windows side by side, two of which end with a pediment. At the top, four windows of the same size as one the ones below are placed under the white sill. Under the north side of the third floor, five window groups were used alternately with panels of double relief griffons. The facade ends with a frame supported by stone consoles at the top and a newly added floor above it. The south facade, overlooking the Golden Horn, is different from the other front by its wide Ottoman fringes made in classical and Baroque style and Oriental influences created by its bay windows. The eaves, supported by wooden double struts on the first floor windows, continue on the entire front with a small gap in the middle. On the second floor, there is a wide, fingered bay supported by wooden consoles in the middle. Orientalism is an area whose existence is based on the difference of Eastern and Western cultures, and in summary, it covers the vast view of the East. Besides its scientific dimension, it also contains pyramids. Eastern-inspired buildings have been built in Europe since the 18th century, and forms have been used freely without discussing their authenticity. The architectural fashion in the West returns to the East in order to mix the concepts even more, and Orientalist architectural examples have been designed in Istanbul since the 1860s. However, Orientalism initiates Ottoman Turkish identity discussions in architecture beyond being any Western movement in Istanbul. It turns out that the history of Ottoman architecture, which covers the second half of the 19th century, is in fact the history of a search for architectural belonging that intertwines with Orientalism. The neoclassical movement is a trend that began in the middle of the 18th century. The birth of this movement is based on the reaction of the artists to the decorations of the Baroque and Rococo style that are used frequently. Taking the example of magnificent simplicity of the structures in ancient Greek and Roman periods, the artists start the neoclassical movement by blending the 18th century with the past. In other words, the purpose of this art movement is to remind the classical style. It is also worth noting that the inspiration for this trend was inspired by Italian architect Andrea Palladio. The ground floor, which is quite high compared to the other floors, along with the half basement floor on the west affect north facade, which includes the entrance, has the characteristics of the Renaissance architecture with its both large-sized rectangular stones. The white border between the basement and the ground floor continues along the entire facade. The entrance door ends with a flat arch. The circular windows, each of an equal size, are visible in the circular Renaissance arch on the facade. On the axis at the top, the tower's type floor, higher than the older sections, is complemented by the dead ends at the top. The marble and the wood workmanship in the doors and interiors are attentive and remarkable. Marble stains are worth seeing. The castle ceiling covering the entrance hall is a magnificent unit, where the wood and the plaster are used together. Columns, arches, and balusters around the space in the middle of the first and second floors are also taken into consideration. Salt Research, which combines a library consisted of comprehensive publication collections focused on art, architecture, design, urbanism, social and economic history, and the archive containing digital documents, is located on the central courtyard and the middle floor of the Galata building on a 650 square meter area. This includes two floors where there was an entrance to the safe rooms in the past and used as branches. Designed by Channel Architecture Planning according to the current leadership principles that give priority to the user, the SALT research space provides a welcoming environment where research is done easily. SALT's research on the archive topics is exhibited on the open archive venue and opened for interpretation. This place is being redesigned for every exhibition. A large deposit from the Ottoman Bank, which can be entered and visited in the middle of the library. In fact, this building has been started to build around a three-story, four-door vault, which was first brought from London, completely made of steel and has an outstanding lock system even today. The two additional floors of the new annex that forms the facade of the Salt Galata overlooking the Thursday market have been functioned as a cafe and restaurant. The cafe area in the ground floor, which is shaped with the understanding of the open kitchen, was constructed as a reinforced concrete, and the restaurant, which was reached through the cafe, was constructed as a steel construction. Differentiation in material selection was preferred in order to separate the appendices made in different periods. The attitude, which is used in the architectural hall of the annex and where the structure is clearly demonstrated, continued in the cafe and restaurant of Cadorero, designed by an architect's design, and Zehra Uçar, and operated by Istanbul Doors. Hüseyin Bari Alptekin's personal library, which is one of the most important assets of Salt Research, is also located in cafe. Auditorium, it was designed by Zoom TPU for long-term sessions such as conferences, seminars, debates, and classical presentation and sharing activities in form of the feature films. The auditorium with a seating capacity of 290 people can also be used for the performances. In the arrangement of the space, mainly wood and leather were used in the living units. Irregular wall surfaces were created the wooden records that drove different curves at the short intervals in order to provide the necessary acoustics in the space. Technical requirements such as mechanical, electrical, and lighting were created behind the wooden surface. The place, which is integrated with the ceiling prepared with the same material and approach, gives an organic look like a cave and resembles the abstract appearance of the eardrum. Exhibition venue. The 490 square meter area on the first floor of Salt Galata was planned as an exhibition space. Unlike the original structure, the space, which has been completely redesigned, except for its outer walls, is a white jar with a white wall and concrete base that does not hide its structural features. Ottoman Bank Museum. Salt Galata is located at the first floor of the Ottoman Bank Museum, founded by a private bank in Turkey, has the distinction of being the first museum. It was launched in 2002 within the body of Ottoman Bank Archive and Research Center. The museum, which started to operate as the General Directorate of the Ottoman Bank in 1892, held in and around the walls in the building sheds light on the history of the Ottoman Bank, which served as the central bank and treasury of the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Bank Museum reflects the little-known world of the late Ottoman and early Republican eras, in which the bank played a central role in the addition of the objects and the documents it contains. In the museum, the important changes, developments, and crises experienced by the Ottoman Bank have been handled chronologically in the 80-year period that passed from its establishment to the status of a private commercial bank. branch buildings, customers, and areas of activity of the same period are highlighted. The Ottoman Bank Museum, which is a place expression where every element can be examined in the contents of the politics, economy, society, even everyday life and culture of the period it belongs to, not only conveys the story of an institution but also presents its representation of life. The archive and concept work of the museum was carried out by Eldem, and its design was made by Bülent Erkmen. The workshops, designed by Arif Özden and Taci Özelgin, consist of a large space that can be divided when desired and two fixed meeting spaces. Thanks to their locations and locations convention for many people to work at the same time, it offers easy access to salt research and the ground floor. Solid natural parquet was used on the floor of the workshops. All the elements adapted to wall, ceiling, and space are terminated with a medium gray color. The spaces which carry the traces of the past and emphasize the feature of the building are designed to remind the past and memory of the building with the general sense of color and lighting. In the design of movable furniture, the function of workshops, current ease, flexibility, and the possibility of easily rearranging were taken into account with reference to any period or orientation. SALT research on archive topics is exhibited in SALT Galata at the open archive venue dedicated to this subject and open for interpretation. Open projects shared with the public by visualization. The archive explores the possible relationship between democracy and transparency. The space is redesigned for each exhibitor. The fourth floor is the Salt Galata was developed during the renovation in line with the structural requirements that become visible as the building layers were removed. First of all, it was necessary to rebuild the roof construction, which was built in the makeshift manner and place the mechanical parts of suitable for the new functions where the building was installed. In parallel with these studies, the fourth floor was designed to respond to multiple proposed private uses, both inside and outside the institution. Drawing attention to the fact that the spatial setup of the building was arranged only for employees at the bank until it turned into Salt Galata. Tümertekin said that the main intervention of the transformation project was to develop vertical transportation limited to the single elevator and to prepare a new circulation scheme. Stating that they made certain intervention to reach the original qualities of the building, Han Tümertekin stated that they created a building with an annex with the addition of new functions and additional building to these purifiers. Adding to another basic intervention was to create a space facing the Golden Horn in order to open the building to the city. Tümertekin emphasized that they made the building visible as much as possible with two new elevator towers and even offered the opportunity to watch the Golden Horn from certain points of these towers. Drawing attention to the fact that they re-added the old glazing to get the light of the day when the building was designed. The architect stated that with the help of the mirror system and glass panels, they were able to carry maximum daylight in the middle of the building in the most economical way. SALT was established under joint management and program of different disciplines to offer wide spaces for art production, to preserve cultural memory, and to bring it to the society. With Salt Galata, it is aimed to bring a total area of 15,000 square meters to urban life in this historical area of Istanbul. This impressive 119-year-old building, which previously operated as the Ottoman Bank Museum building, has housed the bank branch, the regional directorate, and the museum.